New patch, new Byzantium. I honestly think Byzantium's in a pretty easy situation now. I feel the corruption privileges for each of the estates are a lot less punishing now, since they don't just give a flat decrease to maximum tax. Instead, they have a scaling max tax modifier and a minor max tax modifier, making actually dealing with these corruption estates a lot easier. But before we get into that, let's think about the economy. The economy's in a pretty bad situation, as you would imagine, and it's made much worse by inflation. Inflation is now a killer in this patch. Everything now gets its cost increased due to inflation. The only thing that doesn't, funnily enough, is investing in stability. But your cost of court, your army maintenance, your navy maintenance, your forts, your diplomatic spending, buying food, even paying for buildings is now increased by inflation. So mint maxing is far more of a poison chalice than it used to be, to the point where I no longer advocate doing it. So instead, we're going to try and avoid mint maxing and fix the economy without doing so. We're going to demolish all of our forts outside of Constantinople, even the one in what is Gallipoli, simply because there's an event to destroy that fort a few years into the game, so we might as well just get rid of it now. Then we'll bring down our spending on everything else. We don't really need diplomatic spending, as we're going to have quite high positive diplomat growth even without it. And we're even going to stop spending on cost of court. It's actually quite easy to gain passive legitimacy growth without spending a penny, so we're going to do that. How we're going to do that is head over to the bureaucracy screen. We have the Imperial Senate here. You can see that they decrease monthly legitimacy by 0.36. If we max this, once the month ticks, we'll actually gain positive legitimacy. We're then going to set our cabinet to increase legitimacy with our one cabinet member, and just like that we now have positive legitimacy growth even without spending a penny on the courts. One thing we do want to get down though is our war exhaustion. War exhaustion is pretty high and it's massively decreasing our army morale, navy morale, but also our import efficiency and production efficiency, which negatively impacts the economy. It's why fighting wars is quite dangerous as Byzantium in this early game. For research, I would just recommend grabbing Universal Christianity and probably the guilds. By the time you've done that, the Renaissance should have spawned. Even though I said we're not going to be mint maxing, I do advocate getting the ban on exports just so you can get more money from your minting, of course without going over the limit. Rivals, I'd set Bulgaria, Ottomans, Serbia. We are going to release some vassals, but before we do, we're going to increase our relation with Epirus so that we can switch them over into being a pronoia. We're unlikely to inherit him due to his succession law, but it's something we do want to do. We're about ready to unpause. We do hope the Byzantium succession law disaster happens as soon as possible. If it happens while Andronicus here is alive, it'll be easier to deal with. Andronicus can actually live quite long. He has this sickly trait, which has a 25% chance of killing him every year, or a 25% chance of being removed. Of course, if it's removed and doesn't kill him, his survivability massively skyrockets. So we'll see if that happens. If it does, it does. If it doesn't, it doesn't. We are losing a bit of money right now, but this is actually going to fix itself once our trade income comes online. There we go, trading comes online, so we're making a ducat. Rise of the Turks happen, and the fate of the Phoenix. One option we do actually have is to ask money from the Pope, but he often rivals you. So if that happens, of course, you won't be able to do that. I recommend building a spy network on the Ottomans. We'll be destroying them as soon as possible. We'll also build a spy network in Serbia because there's an event to steal this small little vassal from them. So we'll try and do that. Here's said event. If by 1341 their subject loyalty is below 50%, they'll switch and become our vassal. We've got the reformation of the universal judges. Honestly, I would always pick this. The current reform isn't that good, only increasing bureaucracy entrenchment speed while increasing the cabinet power for estates. But the reformed version gives you crown power, gives you an extra cabinet seat, and also increases the efficiency of the cabinet during the fate of the Phoenix situation, or if we win it. It will push us into debt a little, but we're already in debt. And honestly, a bit of debt isn't really a big deal as Byzantium. On that note, we're going to switch over Epirus to a pronoia. Now we're going to release a bunch of pronoia. We're going to release the historical vassal of Thessaly as pronoia, and we're going to release Mora, and then we're going to release as many other ones as we can. What we want to do when we release pronoia is we want to appoint old women, which sounds kind of weird, but the way a pronoia works is if they die without a male successor, we will inherit their lands and their treasury. So we want to find old women either without any children or with only daughters, and then we're going to assign them land. They'll manage it and then probably die, and we will inherit the land and the money that comes with it. I also recommend giving out the islands around the coast, specifically Chiron, because there's an event where Genoa will steal it, so you might as well give it out to a vassal. One thing of note is you can release vassals in core territory now, just not full cores. So these integrated cores, we can release the vassals in them. We'll inherit the land, and then we can just continuously release it. If you do find yourself running out of women that you want to appoint, do consider just appointing old men as well. They may just end up dying without any children, as the AI tends to be pretty bad at the whole reproduction thing. There, that's all our Pronoia handed out. We'll see if any of them die relatively quickly. We're of course going to take a loan because we reformed the judges, but we now have a positive income again, which is excellent and what we want. And there we go, one of our Pronoia had just died not long after we appointed them. We didn't get much money from them because they were literally a one location minor, but now we can just hand out the Pronoia again. If you find you are running out of characters, you can just click the randomly chosen option. If you do it, it won't take one of your characters, it will spawn a new character to put them in charge of the province. If you're lucky, they'll just, you know, they'll fail to survive. But if you, as I said, if you're running out of characters and you still need to hand out land, that's a good way to do it. We have this event to make old John our co-emperor. The historical option is to not do so, but I actually feel it's better to do so. It does increase his power through his cabinet position, but it also gives us other events that can trigger based around him, and some of them are quite good. So we're going to make him our co-emperor. Ooh, I've never actually had this happen before, because of this event has quite a low chance to proc, being 5% a month. But this event can let us ensure the Renaissance will spawn in our capital, or at the very least increases its chance to do so. It will take a lot of money though, 100 ducats, which I'm not sure we can really afford. So I'm not going to press it. Sad, I know. Instead I'm going to have the nobles foot the bill, which will give us the modifier, which will increase institution promotion. Here's our earthquake in Constantinople. We of course can't really avoid it. It's going to cost lots of money to avoid the problem, so we'll just have to stomach it, losing that 10 legitimacy and losing 10 religious influence. We inherited another one of our Pronoia, so we'll just hand it out again. I'll probably stop mentioning handing out Pronoia after this point, just because, you know, we just continuously do it. Old Andronicus gained the righteous trait, which is pretty great. It'll help him increase our monthly legitimacy. One other thing you may want to do, and you should probably do, is if there's any male members of the Pelagius family around, you're going to want to make them these despots. It costs prestige to do so, and it gives them this modifier, which increases their efficiency, increases monthly legitimacy, increases prestige. This only works if they are your ruler, though, so you won't gain legitimacy from just appointing them. But there are a few events I've seen which give you free legitimacy if you have these despots. Mainly events where they fight amongst themselves and you can get legitimacy from them. So I'd recommend handing them out, especially hand them out to your heir if you can, though you can only hand it out to adults, because if they do end up becoming ruler, the modifier will of course apply. Here's one of the events I mentioned based around our co-emperor. We can spend money to get a little integration growth in Morea as we take the land, but we're not really going to be doing that, so instead we'll just say no. Our spy network on the Ottomans is now high enough, so we'll begin fabricating a claim province CB. We actually want the Ottomans to expand as much as they can, because we'll be able to take all the land off them. It looks like they've expanded a little, but not as high as I've seen. I've seen them expand all the way deep into Anatolia within the first few years, but it is what it is. We do have our first parliamentary issue. Keep in mind we're probably not going to successfully pass this one, so do take into account the failure conditions for the one you pick, as some of them have quite nasty failure conditions that have been added in this patch. So we're going to change a law. That should be pretty obvious. One thing I do kind of advocate changing is this law, because it increases the cost of court by an extra 10%. But since our cost of court is currently 0 with positive legitimacy growth, it's probably better not to switch it now for us. But I do quite like the itinerary court just because it increases proximity spread through land. But what we're going to switch is actually our distribution of power. We're currently set to favor the ruler, but personally, I much prefer favor the elites, as it will add an extra 10 max tax to our nobility if we look at them right now. But if we choose to favor the ruler, it will actually turn positive and they'll start paying us a little tax. And as our legitimacy continues to grow, this modifier here, the first consolidated corruption of the elites, will start to decay. Once we reach 100 legitimacy, this will vanish. With that in mind, we're going to switch over. It does mean we're going to be a little down on crown power, but we're already down on crown power anyway. Our goal is to make money and survive, not necessarily have massive amounts of crown power. Our spy network with Serbia is over 30, so we're now going to agitate liberty in that little nation we talked about. We shouldn't need to do anything more than that to get them to switch over to our way of thinking. Also, our Andronicus has actually survived. He's lost his sickly trait, so he's likely to live much longer. We haven't had the disaster trigger though. I do want it to trigger so I can show off how to kill it, but I guess it's not something I can really force. A bunch of things have all happened at once here. We've got our CB on the Ottomans. That small nation that we talked about has now switched over to our side. Doing this is quite beneficial because it doesn't really cost us anything. We get a vassal and we get 5 legitimacy. But now we've got the treason and conspiracy event. I've kind of been waiting for this. This only happens if we make John our co-emperor. So now we can just essentially fire him from our cabinet, force him to become the clergy, and get the crackdown on strong nobles modifier, which reduces noble power by 50% for 20 years. So of course we're going to do that. It does mean we lose quite a good cabinet minister, but it also leads to a drop in the power of the nobility. Since our CB against the Ottomans is online, we're going to attack them. We did embargo them, but they've only demolished one of their forts. That seems to be consistent in this version. They don't seem to just demolish all their forts like they used to, but we are pretty strong compared to them, so this shouldn't be a colossal problem. We still haven't had the disaster trigger. You know, it'd be funny if the disaster triggered while we were at war or just as we were about to win. We've managed to reduce our war exhaustion to 0, so we're no longer getting the negative effects of it. So fighting this war will be a bit easier than it would have been if we'd done a no CB, for example. There we managed to beat the Ottomans there. They honestly shouldn't be able to oppose us. Now, one battle seems to be all the AI can take a lot in this version. Ooh, there we go. The bid for the Byzantium crown. This guy here, Demetrius Pelagius, pretty much always seems to be the leader of it, or at least consistently he seems to be the leader. One thing we can do is blind him to massively reduce his life expectancy by 10 years, which would ensure he dies quite quickly. But honestly, he tends to die quite quickly anyway. He's already 46. Keep in mind, the moment he dies, we win the disaster. And while the disaster is going on, we can't actually release vassals. That's something to be aware of. It's a pity this happened just as we were at war with the Ottomans. It would have been better to happen while we were at peace, but it is what it is. It's not an insurmountable problem. And here's one of the good events for this disaster. It can be kind of up in the air whether these trigger. Sometimes I've had the disaster just have no bad events happen and nothing but good events. And then I've had the opposite where nothing but bad events happen. One of the reasons I kind of prefer to avoid it or just solve it very quickly. But of course we'll gain that stability and legitimacy. Oh, and then it happened again. What I tell you, like sometimes this disaster just gives you great events. And sometimes it doesn't. Here's the Renaissance. Since we're going vassal heavy, we're just going to head down the route that increases subject opinion and subject loyalty. Although we only have one disloyal vassal at the moment, and it's not much disloyalty. We could just improve relationships, and there we solved it. There we go, we've defeated the Ottomans. We could really expand into them, maybe even full annex them. Almost. If we get knocked up a little bit more war score, we could full annex the Ottomans here. But the antagonism is a little too much. In my experience, the AI is very aggressive at forming coalitions and attacking you in this current version, and because we're currently in that disaster, we can't release Pronoia. If we weren't in the disaster, I would advocate just going all in and conquering everyone and releasing them, but for now, we're going to hold back a little. We're just going to take this much land. We'll also grab money from the Ottomans. We'll of course have them return all of our cores, and then we'll make peace. I guess we could also grab war reparations from them, and we could have them release all the slaves they have. With the money we get from them, we'll immediately pay off all of our loans. As we're now at peace, we're now going to commission a Dynastic Chronicles. This will give us a bit of legitimacy, and then we're going to blind the Pretender. It's going to cost us 25 legitimacy, which is quite a lot, but the sooner he dies, the sooner this disaster ends, and the sooner we can release vassals again. And we're also about to gain a bunch. Oh, well, there you go. He died almost immediately after we blinded him. So that will end the disaster immediately. There we go. Succession crisis ends. We gain 12 legitimacy and 11 stability. We also reclaimed some parts of Anatolia, which gives us 20 legitimacy for this one. And then for this other option, we get a choice. We can restore Anatolian administration, which gives us a cabinet seat, or we can restore the old capital, which gives estate satisfaction and monthly legitimacy. I prefer this one, mainly because I'm not going to be coring this land in Anatolia, so the extra cabinet seat isn't as helpful. We're now going to release the land that we've taken from the Ottomans. That isn't our cause, obviously. If you can, try and release historical vassals, because historical vassals, of course, have their cause. And when you inherit them, you'll inherit their cause. The problem with releasing the minor custom vassals is they obviously won't have cause on the land, and they'll have to core it. And if they die too quickly, they won't have time to core it. And you can end up in a kind of vicious cycle where you hand the land out, they die, you regain the land, but it's not cored, so you hand it out again, and so on, right? There, our situation's pretty stable now. We're economically making money, and we can really go anywhere we want. We can continue to expand into Anatolia, or we could pivot west and invade Italy. After all, forming Rome is actually pretty easy in this DLC. We just need to control 75 locations in Italy and control Rome itself, and then you can just become Rome, which honestly makes the whole thing trivial, really. As I mentioned, we're going to get a bit of a coalition because of how proactive the AI is at forming coalitions, but we can actually use that to our benefit. We could declare war on the coalition and annex all of them, allowing us to rapidly expand. We're now going to tolerate and accept the Turks. It's going to put us a bit over our cultural capacity limit, but it'll be worth it. We can now start demanding that the Turkish tribes pay us to exist. If they refuse, we actually get CBs on them. So I guess let's demand something. It does cost legitimacy, but you know, let's make a demand. We'll see if they accept. They chose to pay us. How nice of them. But enough doing that doesn't create a truce, so they could still attack us, or we could attack them. With that in mind, we're going to reform our Byzantium army. So if they do attack us, we'll be in a stronger position. And they did attack us. Despite that, though, we should pretty easily handle them. Despite them declaring war, our army is larger than theirs, though perhaps not as high quality. Since this is a coalition war, we can't really expand. We can only take land from the one who called the war. So I think we'll likely just white peace or extract money from them instead of going crazy with taking land. There we go, we'll extract some money from them. Thank you for your donation to the Roman treasury. On an unrelated note, our former co-emperor went off and became the ecumenical patriarch. Probably a good use of his time. Now, we're going to go to war with Naples. They do outnumber us. They are stronger than us. The thing is, though, they're over here in Italy, and they're going to have a poor time ferrying their armies across to Greece. With that said, we should be fine. Our vassals should be able to deal with all the sieging and defeating the initial armies of the Nepalese, of the Neapolitan vassals. We just need to make sure that we're in a position to catch the actual Neapolitan forces when they attempt to land in Greece. Here we go, they ferried over this 60,000. We should destroy them. There looks like reinforcements are about to arrive. We should destroy them as well. Yep. Full stack wipe. We'll chase this 3,000, see if we can't eliminate them fully. Yep, there they go. Here's another group up here. Should just be able to smash them again. Although they managed to escape. We'll just pursue them. There they go. Naples only has 12,000 men left. Are they willing to surrender? Not quite yet. And there we've actually racked up 100 war score. We'll have them return their core to us here, and then we'll take these little islands around the coast. Ooh, it looks like we're not going to be able to take all of them. That's a pity. I suppose we'll leave them with our core then. It's not like it's going to stop being our core, and we can always take it later. I prefer getting these little islands out the way, just because they're a nuisance to take. We have some minor rebellions in our eastern territory, so we'll need to go deal with them, but they are very much minor revolt. There's one, and there's two. Excellent. Now we'll release the land we took from Naples. Now we're going to pivot back east. We'll conquer these guys here. We have cores on all their territory, so we won't actually gain any antagonism for annexing them. And I think, because they're allied with this nation here, we'll also full annex them too. We're building a spy network on the not Saruman nation. They also have land that we all have cores on, and they have allies with two of the Turkic tribes, so we can annex both of those as well in the war. I think this is the point where we just start expanding crazily and conquer all of Anatolia as fast as possible. It's not like we're in a rush though, but it's always nice to go faster, right? We've almost got our inflation down to 0. Once that happens, we'll then max our minting to the point where it's not giving us inflation, obviously, which will help us make quite a lot of money. When it comes to bureaucracies, I think they're all worth maxing. The books one at the bottom reduces the power of the estates, whereas the honorary titles, when it's low, decreases our estate satisfaction. So this is the one I think is the least important, I think. It's mainly just increases estate satisfaction. In fact, it might be worth switching this out, though it will be very expensive. Since we're at max legitimacy, we could stop funding the Imperial Senate. As long as our income for cost of court remains positive, we don't need it. But for now, I think we'll leave it here. If you've watched this, you've probably seen like the overall strategy and hopefully learned a few tips and ideas that can help you with playing Byzantium yourself. I'm not sure how things go if Andronicus dies. It would definitely change things. You wouldn't be able to blind the Pretender, for example. But in the 5 test runs I did, Andronicus survived in 4 of them. So I think there's a pretty high chance he just ends up surviving. And to be fair, in the one where he did die, the succession crisis ended up not triggering until John was of age, which is about now. In this game. To be fair, it was only a 5% chance of triggering, and I mean in this run I had the Pelagius Renaissance trigger for the first time, and that's also a 5%, so I guess things can be very much down to luck in that regard. But as I said, I do hope this video was helpful for you. Do let me know what you think and share your own tips. I'm sure people have come up with their own strategies that aren't based around just releasing hundreds of vassals. Did you know every Prenoia gives you a single 0.01 to your legitimacy? So hypothetically, if we had 100 of them, we'd gain 1 point of legitimacy. Not that we'd need a whole point, obviously, but I just thought that was interesting. So I said, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.